Yo, welcome to episode 14 of the Put On podcast. D, how are we? Happy Thanksgiving.
Happy Thanksgiving. What do they call it in Canada? It's not Thanksgiving, right?
It's just another Thursday in Canada. It is Thanksgiving earlier in October. We do Thanksgiving like a month before you guys. So we already had a Thanksgiving. We said thanks, deploy gratitude, and all that good stuff about a month ago.
But it's like, is it the same thing like in relation to the pilgrims or is it something different?
Honestly, I'm not going to misspeak. You're asking the wrong guy. I enjoy my turkey dinner. I like the family time. I say thanks. I think so. Yeah, I think it's something. I don't know.
So wait, it must not be as good though, because like you're not getting the full day of football, right? Because
If
it's not like
not getting the football. No.
what is again, because I don't even know the answer to this. Like what aside you have turkey, I assume?
Yeah, Thanksgiving is. I want to say Thanksgiving is the second Sunday of October.
Got it. And do you get like so if it's the second Sunday of October, do you get any days off during the week for it or no?
Working for an American company, me no, but yeah, we get Thanksgiving Friday and Monday
Interesting.
maybe, but yeah, definitely Friday. Friday,
And
yeah.
And then is it the same type of food outside of the turkey? Like what else is on the, menu?
Same food at my place, stuffing, mashed potatoes, beans. We don't typically do the mac and cheese. I feel like when my mom's listening to this, we need mac and cheese next year. I'm trying to think what else, but yeah, why? What's in your Thanksgiving?
I mean, it's pretty much the same turkey, stuffing, um, what else do we usually have? We didn't have mac and cheese either, which was pretty disappointing. We had some mashed potatoes, I don't know. I
Is,
feel like I've been eating for the last 72 hours,
is
so
mac
it's
and
hard.
cheese the best side for you? Would you say?
No, I would say number one side to me, stuffing. Has to be stuffing. I love stuffing. And any honestly, like I don't think it's considered a side, but gravy. Just like I don't ever eat gravy on things outside of Thanksgiving. It's just delicious. I love
Right.
putting it on everything.
Yeah, you're like a guy who anything on your plate, you get the gravy and you just douse.
Well, yeah, because I go turkey, stuffing, mashed potatoes, all that stuff. I feel like
Your
gravy
meal plan.
amplifies. Yeah, makes those things better.
Yeah, it's interesting because I feel like Thanksgiving goes super under the radar in Canada, but again, with the Thursday football and it's like drawn out from Thursday to Sunday, and you guys got a couple days off. Yeah, it seems like it's definitely a way bigger thing in the US. But Thanksgiving, I would say, are you a turkey guy? Like, I would say turkey's hit or miss in terms of turkey can be dry.
Yeah, I mean, like the turkey that I had for Thanksgiving, I thought was like decent. Like I didn't love it, and I agree with you. It could be hit or miss. I mean,
Oh, does
I love.
your wife cook the turkey and everything?
She didn't cook it. It was my sister in law, and I don't even think she like cooked. I mean, she got it from somewhere. It's not like she caught the turkey. Um,
Yeah, yeah.
but yeah, look, I agree with you. Turkey's hit or miss. Like it could either be really good or it could be like whatever. I eat turkey like the cut up like
Yeah, I feel like you're a turkey
deli
cut
meat
guy.
all the time. Not the same though. Not real turkey.
What's your favorite? Like, if you could pick any, like a chicken, any kind of meat for Christmas, Thanksgiving, Hanukkah, what would you have?
I'm not a big chicken guy. I'm not a big chicken guy. I'm not a big like actual turkey guy. I like beef. I like ribs. I
You
like
don't eat
steak.
pork. Do you eat pork?
I do eat pork. Yeah.
Yeah, okay. Okay, you like a ham then? I
And
like
you know what? The funny thing is I love all the different types of like pork except for actual like I don't like a pork chop. Like I'll eat bacon, I'll eat like again like deli meat like ham. I will eat what else is like a pork thing? S- Um I guess they're kind of in hot dogs. I guess the point being is like I love pork and like I just or like spare ribs, like, things like that,
yeah.
whatever. Um wonton soup and a dumpling, delicious. But I don't like just like a ham, like a baked ham. I'm not. That's never been something. I know that's like a big thing that people like to eat on Christmas. What about you though?
Yeah, I would I like ham. I like pork. If I had to have like a bird at dinner, it would actually probably be a ham. Like I love bacon. I love pork, but
If you could have a bird at dinner, it would be a ham.
yeah, I meant like
Clip it. Clip it, Steve. Clip that.
you know what I meant if the meat, but I was thinking like turkey, chicken, and then I would I would skip the bird and have a ham.
Okay. That's going in the blooper reel for sure.
Uh, but yeah, no, aside from like the feast, do you do anything else on Thanksgiving aside from that in football?
Um, I eat. I definitely watch a lot of football. I do my fair share of probably smoking weed just to like offset all of it. A lot of hanging with the family and spending quality time. It's funny too because like Thanksgiving, like you get your family together, you're always talking about like what's going on in the world and politics and all this stuff, and it's like that only happens at Thanksgiving. Thanksgiving is such a unique holiday in that way, and I would also say it's like beloved in the states, right? Like it's such a everybody like can enjoy it. It's just it really kind of lends itself well to a male audience, I would say,
Yeah,
particularly.
yeah, no, especially with yeah, to your point, the football and do you do a big fan? Like, how many people were at your sister in law's thing?
Yeah, maybe like 20, 25. It was
Pretty big.
yeah, pretty big. Yeah, and I don't know, like I was saying, I've been in a food coma ever since. I had a buddy that sent me this the other day and it was like kind of like caught me in a moment because it was like, okay, you have Thanksgiving, or first it's like you're gonna have a bunch of candy on Halloween, right? A bunch of sugar on Halloween. Then you're gonna eat a bunch of pies on Thanksgiving. And then on like Hanukkah, Christmas time, you're gonna eat all types of sweets. And it's like these couple of months are just you're eating sugar just all the way through. Like it's really not healthy these like winter months in terms of how the diets are for each holiday.
And the weather's changing. You're probably spending less time outside, less time being active. Yeah, it's for health purposes, it's probably not the best time of the year.
Right. And then no wonder everybody's New Year's resolution is like they got to get healthy. It's because they've spent the last 3 months just fucking eating like nonstop. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, no, it is funny. I think just quick, what's your take on a New Year's resolution?
Um, it feels so played out, It's like, okay, I'm gonna do
Let's
like a
wait
New
till
Year's resolution.
let's wait till January 1st to make
Right.
a change, like
I do think though there's something to, and I kind of like coined this in a way, like for some work thing that I had to do of like making realistic
yeah.
New Year's resolutions. And I like the idea of like, what can I do that I'm actually going to follow through on? So it's like, I want to read a book a month,
Mhm.
or like, I'm going to start spending 1 hour less on social media a week, like those types of things, like things that I know I could actually follow through with, maybe go to sleep an hour later and get up an hour earlier. um, but like, yeah, it just seems like everybody does the whole like they're kind of doing their cheat months leading up until New Year's,
Yeah,
and then okay, now I'm gonna like
make it
turn a new leaf, and for most people it's short lived, right?
it is, yeah. That's a good point you make around, like, trying to come up with things that you actually can see through because I feel like for most of us, it's, "Hey, I wanna achieve this outlandish goal, and, I've never done anything like this in my" and then, it fades after 2 weeks. So, yeah, it's good to be realistic when coming up with New Year's resolutions, but I think the concept of waiting till again, like, it's a new year, new me, but if you really do need to make a change and are actively thinking about it, like, why not do it as soon as you can? Why not, obviously, Christmas time, hard, but yeah, that's how I feel about New Year's resolutions.
Listen, I sympathize for people that do it because I do it myself, but also because like it's the same conversation I have with myself every single morning after I've like, eaten junk food all night long. And I've told myself for the, 1000th time that I'm not going to do this tonight. I'm going to eat healthy. So I'll be healthy all day long, all morning, all day. and then I just repeat the same cycle at night, and I'm like, I have no self control.
You know
You
what
know
the
that
best way to combat that is?
how
No junk food in the house.
I know that's the only way. The only way is to not have the junk food in the house. It's like the real atomic habits kind of method, right?
Yeah. Yeah, maybe do you do the grocery shopping?
I do. Well, actually, we both go grocery shopping.
Like, does she like I know you're definitely going in the aisles, picking out that bag of chips, that chocolate, whatever. Is she doing the same?
She's doing the healthy shop, and I'm doing the snack shop.
Yeah, okay. So then you just don't go, and then there's
I
no
know, but I say I'm doing the snack shop. I also get like some of the produce and the milk and
so
the eggs.
you guys got your own like you
Yeah, we have
get
our
eggs
home.
and she gets the veggie, like, what?
Yeah, like I want to pick out the fruit. She's gonna pick out some of the veggies. She's gonna like cook most of the meals. I'm gonna get some of the things that she goes to Trader Joe's and there's a lot of stuff there that's not available.
You
That I
you
pick up at the other market.
you might not know this, and you don't need to answer this, but I'm curious, like, you live in New York, you have 2 kids, so family of 4. What does a grocery bill look like for a month?
It's a good question because the funny thing is and I want to ask you about this too. I started using QuickBooks just to like track my like personal finances, right?
Yeah,
And so one thing I wanted to see was just like a really detailed overview of like where the money's going and bro, I spent so much money. Of all the money that I have, I feel like the majority is being spent on food. It's being spent on going out to dinners, it's being spent on grocery shopping, it's being spent on meals. And so like over the course of a month, over $1,000 being spent on groceries, especially when you have kids too. And
yeah,
so it's like
but how often do you eat out then?
Um, define eating out, like going out to dinner with my wife and like friends, or like going out to dinner with my kids, or like picking up dinner. You know what I mean? Like how many meals? It's
All of it,
varies.
like, meals that
It's a
aren't.
lot. It's hard to count. I mean, a lot. There's a lot of meals that we go out to.
I got you. Just 'cause timing, like,
Yeah, it's like, and sometimes that's the activity for a weekend is like after this, it's like I'm gonna go out with my wife and we're probably gonna take the kids out for dinner because like or we could just stay at home
you
and
have to go
and
to
take it
spot
easy.
for dinner?
Not really. No,
Oh,
no, no, we don't. I mean, they always want to go to the shittiest places. Like, like my youngest, my 5-year old always wants to go to Moe's Southwest Grill. Have you ever been to that spot?
no, no, but it sounds raunchy.
It's like Chipotle. It's like a nicer Chipotle, not even nicer, kind of like equal.
I got you. I mean,
Um, I want to ask you though. So you just got back from another Euro trip because that's all you do. You go on Euro trips all the time,
yeah, this was
right?
this was a quick this was for work. It was a
Okay,
couple
it's for
weeks
work.
for work.
Tell me about it. I want to hear real quick. Give me like
Yeah,
the 1 minute.
yeah, the 1 minute was in London, for work stuff. I caught 5 footy matches, in 10 days, and the craziest one I've been to one in England before, and Chelsea's obviously my favorite team, so that was my favorite match, but the craziest one was, Milan, AC Milan.
Yeah,
San Siro, which is like one of the oldest stadiums, and I want to say it's like seats 90,000 people, and they were playing PSG, so we got to see Mbappe. It's a big game, Champions League, Tuesday night. But the what was happening was like it's packed to the brim, 90,000 people, like fucking sin. Like I'll have to send you some videos. I know that we put one thing on the story actually because I put it on mine and tagged to put on, but like just the crowd, the vibe, and what they did was the goalie on PSG used to play on AC Milan. He's from Italy. He's like a hometown boy, but he moved to PSG for the money. And so people printed off hundreds of thousands of fake dollar bills with his face on it that said
yeah,
like merchant on it and it had like different Italian lingo. And then the chant was whenever the ball would go close to him or like when they would announce his name, everyone would scream like Donnarumma, which is his name. So I'm gonna butcher, but like they're pretty much calling him a son of a bitch, and then would throw this money So, man, I've never seen in my life so much money, like this fake money being thrown in. It's all over him on the pitch, like he's slipping on it. Like, bro, the whole crowd is just throwing dollar bills, calling him son of a bitch and a money merchant.
Oh my god.
So,
Were they doing the flares while you were there?
flares, like the away fans doing the flares. The interesting thing about footy is that in the away section for most leagues in Europe, they like it's fenced in, so like you can't get out of that section. And what they
Uh-huh.
do is you can't leave. They keep the away fans in there for like 2 hours post match, so you're not leaving at the same time as the home fans and getting into any shit. So like the away fans go crazy with the flares and stuff, but they're like caged in. They're caged animals. They can't leave. And so that was like, what was going on at the Milan game. Lots of flares though, lots of loud noise. Yeah, crazy atmosphere. And then yeah, I got back, and the one other thing I actually note over like the last couple weeks, because it was very wholesome, was that so I haven't seen my grandma in probably like 5 years, since like pre-COVID days, and
Uh-huh.
she lives like in Alberta, but like in a small town, 6 hours out. Just haven't had time to make the trip, and I flew back into Calgary, and it was actually Jules's idea, but I had like a 27-hour layover in Calgary, and I was like, "Fuck that! I don't want to wait 27 hours here." So she drove to pick me up, and we carried on to Medicine Hat, which is where my grandma's from, and spent a couple days with her, like just the three of us. She's 92, 93.
Wow.
And so took her out to dinner, like took her shopping, whatever. And it was just very like, going from a crazy Euro work trip, whatever, to like spending 2 days, like just my grandma and Jules is obviously there. Um, yeah, I was just super wholesome. I enjoyed it. I just wanted to share that. But
That's really sweet. What's your grandmother's name?
I call her
First name?
Nana, Nana Shirley.
Nana Shirley?
Yeah, Shirley.
I like that. I
Um,
get a kick out of like grandmother and grandpa's names, because I always like to see like if they're coming back and like, because then the kids that like my kids, are growing up with, like some of them now have like old time style
like
names.
what?
And
Like what?
I don't know, like kids start getting named like Oliver and like like girls will get named like Emma and like those types of names and like uh, what's another one that I could think of? What were you gonna say?
No, I was just gonna say, like, I mean, both my grandma's names, Brenda and Shirley, like, I don't know, those are very old names. Like, I don't know a Brenda
Yeah,
Shirley who's like my age, let alone young.
I know it's funny because like I have like there are a lot of like Barbaras that I know, like my aunt Barbara. My mom was like friends with Barbara. It's
Yep.
like, have you met a girl named Barbara at this point under the age of like 25? Probably not. Like
Oh,
it's like such a name of a generation type of thing, right?
yeah, it's funny too, like how, you know, every year they released a list of like most popular names, and just like if you looked 50 years ago versus now, how that has evolved. I'm curious. I want to do that after actually, but yeah, Barbara.
I saw like a funny thing on like social where it was like I forget who was saying it, but they were talking about in the future where it's like, "Oh, come here, it's Grandpa Braden," or like Grandpa,
Yeah,
Jackson. Like it's
yeah,
all these like new age names that are like going to be the
grow
Grandpa Jagger, and like those types of names.
the other thing that I always find weird is like, okay, so think about the name like Bob, for example. Bob, like calling a 50-year-old man Bob, all good. But I'm thinking about like, imagine a baby. Like I can't imagine calling like
Yeah.
this little kid Bob. Like there's
Right.
names that are very adult like in my opinion. And it's like, how was that ever a kid? Like Bob,
Right.
Frank, like it's like baby Frank, like what?
Like, oh, this baby's so cute. Let's name him Carl.
Yeah,
It's like
whole time.
Carl's like a 37-year-old like auto mechanic, not
Yeah,
like a little baby.
exactly. Yeah, yeah, yeah. On this like note, the the so after the last episode 13,
Yeah.
um, my mom called me and was like, "I think Derek needs a dog." I know you wanted to talk about that briefly. Um,
I I did wanna talk about that. I did want to talk about that because when you texted it to me, my first thought was like, yeah, I could see how somebody listening or watching us would think that I would need a dog just because I think I responded to you. I'm like, why? Because I'm why I'm depressed. Like, is that why? And you're like, no, 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 that's not why. It's because whatever. But like that's definitely the reason why. Like I must have seemed like the saddest motherfucker in the entire world on that last pod.
I think you were just talking about, like, you know, you
Needing a change, right?
also, like, the world is grim,
Yeah.
all these things, and, like, as much as kids are bundles of joy, like, just the love a dog can give you. I mean, my family got a dog a few years ago and, like, a COVID puppy, and, yeah, just, every day, it'll get you out of the house. Every day, you have to walk the dog, like,
Right.
all sorts of things that the dog has positive impact for your health, um, and a man's best friend. So I think that's why. But she said she did make the point, like, it'll get him out of the house every day to walk.
And listen, I think like the thought process behind it is the right thought process. Dogs do give you unconditional love. I actually happen to love dogs. I grew up with a dog. And my neighbor right down the street just got like a boxer puppy maybe like 6 months ago. So cute.
Yeah,
And yeah, now I see him all the time just walking the dog all around the neighborhood. And I think there would be all types of positive benefits for me to get a dog. My only reason why I'm not is you know what? I wasn't even thinking about the money, but the money is definitely something that yeah, they're expensive. It's more so the leaving the dog home when I go to work and my wife works and it's like my mom has a dog, and it's like 2 years old or so, great dog, but it's like it's such a responsibility that when you go away or like when you're at work, just finding somebody to babysit it, finding somebody to take it out. That's the thing. It wouldn't be fair to a dog if I like got in, just left at the house all day, or I'd have to hire somebody to come and like dog walk it, you know?
yeah, which again goes back to the money thing. But yeah, no, I hear
Yeah.
you. One day you have a dog. Should we let's jump into the put on segment. I think we should start with the show, movie, or clip, and you start us off here.
Okay. So I've mentioned this guy before on one of the earlier podcasts. I think so basically the guy that I wanted to talk about was Nate Bargatze, right? He was on Saturday Night Live a couple weeks ago. Did you by any chance get to see that or no?
No, I didn't.
He's so funny and I think uh part of the reason that he's like so impressive is that like for such a successful comedian who's like blowing up right now, he's clean. He doesn't curse, like that's one of his main things. So he has to be like super funny, super dry. So he was hosting Saturday Night Live the other day. I gotta give a shout out to my brother-in-law because he made me watch this part of it. And I kind of like watched it very briefly and then I turned it off. And then he actually made us watch it the other day when we were there for Thanksgiving. And it's like this clip that I'm going to send you afterwards where he plays George Washington
Yeah,
and it's basically like he's like, you know, ba- we want to like have freedom and we want to have liberty and like I'm going to make sure that when I'm the president that everything is going to be counted in pounds, like it's
yeah,
not going to be or like we're going to use centimeters and millimeters and then instead of meters we're going to use yards and they're like well like and
oh,
there's going to
I did. Yes, yes, I saw.
see that
Yeah,
and he's just
I did.
going through all of these things that we do in America that like make no sense and it was fucking hilarious and one of the most genius like SNL scenes that I've seen in a long time. And I think I listened to him on maybe it was part of my take talk about
Yeah,
that scene of just like I think it was something that he helped write, but it's incredible. So that I want to put you onto that.
I'll have to.
Did you see it or no?
I saw like a clip of that of what you're talking about, but no, I didn't see. I gotta go and watch that. That's
And he was like,
funny. Yeah,
"And then
yeah,
we're gonna play a game, and it's, the most popular game is gonna be football." And they're like, "Oh, football?" And they're like, "So are you gonna use your feet?" And it's like, "No, it's mostly gonna be with your hands, but you are gonna use your feet to kick a point." And they're like, and he's like, "And the points are gonna either be 1 point or 3 point." Like, and he kept going to like all of the random things. It
that's
was
so funny
hilarious.
too to think about, like, that shit. Yeah, yeah. I'll have to watch that. I don't even yeah, I don't know Nate Bargatze like that either. I honestly
Okay, so if you don't know Nate Bargatze like that, then the other thing that I would just really quickly put you onto is his first stand up. It's called The Tennessee Kid.
yeah.
Is one of my favorite stand ups of all time. You got to watch that. Watch that tonight if you get a chance.
Where would I find it?
Netflix.
Okay. Yeah, I'll look that up. I'll watch it.
What
Um,
What about you? Show, movie, clip, anything you've seen lately?
yeah, I got 2 shows. One, and I know I asked you this before, but did you watch Squid Game in Korean or in English?
I watched it with the subtitles in Korean.
With the English subtitles?
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah, okay, so you got the full, because most people I know watch it in I watch both, but it's very different, like, in terms of the translation when you watch it in English versus you watch it in Korean and you look at the subtitles, and, I mean, I love Squid Game. I hope there another season comes out, but they have on Netflix right now, like, the actual pe it's kinda like Mr. Beast like, but actual people competing in Squid Game, uh,
yeah.
for the prize money, and I only watched the first episode, which is, like, the red light, green light one, but, yeah, I definitely would say if you watch Squid Game, like, watch these people partake in it real life. It's funny. I think that, like, it's actually very good, like, character development and stuff too that they've done. I have, like, a small feeling that they're paid actors and this was, like, already the outcome was already determined before. It's a little bit like, yo, when you're watching it, you definitely watch it, but, like, when they hit the ground, for example, with the red light, green light, some of it's super cringy, like, they're very extra with it. It's almost like, in the show, they died. Obviously, in this, they're not gonna die, but it's like they hit the ground, they're freaking out, like,
Well, okay, couple just quick questions. One is it like an American show or is it like a Korean show?
no, not Korean. It's
Okay.
yeah,
And then obviously like what Squid Game is all about is like if you lose, you're dead,
you die.
right? So like it's kind of like how can it be as entertaining if the stakes aren't like what
It's
are the stakes?
if the real humans don't die.
Yeah, yeah, yes.
I hear you. Yeah, it's definitely not as much at stake, but,
Huh.
I mean, but still, however much I forget what the prize money is, but it's a lot of money. Like,
Probably a lot of money, yeah.
I'd be dialed in. But that one you gotta watch, and then
Okay.
the other one is, it's like it's normally not my vibe, but it's kinda like a th it's an Edgar Allan Poe, obviously, the
Yeah.
it's, like, based off, like, one of his stories. The show is called The Fall of the House of Usher, um, and it follows, like, the main character, Roderick Usher, like, is a pharmaceutical giant who obviously, you know, made different drugs and killed a bunch of people with fake trials because the drugs are getting pushed to market, and
Is this real? Is this real or is this made up?
it's made up. It's like an Edgar
Okay.
Allan Poe thing. I
Okay.
mean, yeah, no, the story's made up. But
It's fiction.
it's fictional. But so and it's 8 episodes and it takes you through sort of his confession around like it starts with a court case and then he has 6 children, I wanna say, and the next 6 episodes are all about how the children die in different ways, and so it kind of plays that story out, and then I'm on the last episode, I'm on episode 8, so I've watched, like, the 7, seen, like, how each of the children have died, how he feels about it because it's, like, him recounting the story. I don't wanna spill too much, and I don't know if it's, like, your cup of tea. I didn't think it was mine, but it's interesting, and just as, like,
Sounds morbid.
a little bit, yeah. It's like thriller meets I wouldn't say horror, but a little bit. Yeah, I don't watching it before bed, like, I'm not kinda like, "Oh, shit," like,
Right.
um, but Yeah, it's engaging. It's one of those ones where, if you want something to engage you, but that's mind numbing enough, I recommend it. Follow the House of
Okay,
Money.
because when I saw it on like our little Google Doc, I thought it was like a something
About
autobiographical
Usher.
about Usher. Yeah.
When I saw it too, I was like, "Okay, yeah, this is interesting. I wanna I'll look at Usher. I wanna watch the fall of Usher. What's that about?"
Yeah. I'm like, I mean, Usher is like not as popular as he once was, but like,
No,
I wouldn't say like the fall of Usher. I was like, but okay, let's check it. Let me hear what Cal has to say about it.
no,
Not that
yeah, yeah. Yeah, watch it. Watch the first episode and let me know what you think. Let's jump to the next book. Imma let you hit this. I don't have a book. So yeah, you put me on.
okay. And by the way, I've been noticing you have been reading way
I
less
I
of late.
I agree. I want you to hold me accountable on what you were talking about before, New Year's resolution, read a book a month or a book a week or whatever. Maybe I need something like that. So yeah, hold me accountable.
Okay, I will. And I'll say this. A lot of times, like I'll talk about a book, and I think I find myself doing one of two things. One is like I'll tell too much of what's happened in the book, and it kind of spoils it for somebody else. So I'm not going to do that. But then the second part of it is like I could read a book and completely forget about like exactly what I've read, and so that part of it is always challenging for me. But I read one book and I'm in the middle of another book, so I just want to talk about them very quickly. The first one is a book called Same as Ever. It's Morgan Housel's new book. Did you ever read the book? I think I might have asked you this before. The Psychology of Money.
No, I didn't, but I know the book.
Incredible book, and the reason I read Same as Ever was because he was actually on podcast with Tim Ferriss, my guy,
Yeah.
talking about the book, and it just sounded really interesting. And his whole thing was basically like, look, I went back and, we're always trying to forecast the future. And I think he's like, his main premise is that we're terrible at forecasting the future. But there's all these things that have happened over time that are just always remain the same.
Yeah.
And so he wanted to kind of tell a bunch of anecdotes, a bunch of stories about how a lot of things have been the same as always, and I think a lot of it has to do with just human behavior.
Hold on. When you say a lot of things have been the same as always, what do you mean?
Like meaning like um we never foresee like a collapse or a recession or all these things, but what always remains the same is after those things happen, the way people react to them are the same.
You're
um
so is that more on the note of like the human psychology aspect of the macro trends and when it has to do with money? Is that what you're saying?
Definitely a part of that. And it's very much about like I guess what you could say about Morgan Housel is he is very big on the psychology of everything, right? I mean, like I said, his first book is The Psychology of Money,
Yeah, yeah.
and so yeah, he definitely takes like a really unique approach to storytelling. But the thing I love about him is that he's great at kind of bringing up examples. And so there were two that kind of stuck out in my mind of just I wouldn't even say these are like same as ever type of scenarios, but like scenarios in which like a small change has led to a huge kind of outcome. And so like he tells this story about, and I think again I might have told you this story a couple of days ago when we about though George Washington. And it's funny because I just mentioned George Washington talking about Nate Bargatze, but of the battle of, I think it was called the Battle of Long Island, and just how like the British army they were advancing, they were kind of on the verge of capturing George Washington and his army, and basically like the wind turned, and then it gave like an extra day for George Washington and his army to escape. And it's like the wind changing is basically why there's a United States of America, because he would have been captured and that would have been the end of the Revolutionary War. And it's so crazy um how just like fragile the whole thing is. You know, like our whole world is so fragile in that way. But it also is a lot of times what is the impetus for like momentous kind of changing policies. And so, like, another example that he talks about is the Triangle Fire, which was some garment factory fire from back in the day, with a bunch of women working in a building where they locked the staircase because they didn't want the women to like leave the building.
Okay.
And then there was a fire, and basically all these women had to jump out of a building. They all plunged to their death, but it set the stage for workers' rights in
Yeah,
America.
yeah, yeah.
Um, and so there's all these little examples of just like all of these things, in which it's funny I bring up those examples, but a lot of times it's just the way that society reacts to certain situations. It's the fact that so many times throughout history, all these unprecedented things happen, but what if you look back in history, like what you would see is that unprecedented things are happening all the time, right? And so like
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
it's not unprecedented if
If you have
unprecedented things happen all the time, right?
more often than not, yeah.
Just a really incredible book, and I feel like it changes the way you think about a lot of things, investing being one of them, right? And the way the kind of like the cycles of the way the depression and recessions and all these things happen, and then how people react to them.
This this what you're saying reminds me of, did you ever read, it's on a little bit of a different note, but you're talking about, like, the recessions and trends and the psychology. You ever read The Sovereign Individual?
No, but I remember you putting me
Yeah.
onto it, maybe in like
Really?
episode 1
Yeah.
or 2.
Very early, and it's super similar to what you're talking about in terms of, like, you know, recognizing the trends and being able to predict, what's gonna happen in investing wise in the future, and how, um, ownership of stock, homes, all these different things have looked across, a historical span, and then again predicting out how it's gonna look in the future. If you were to give someone, you know, would you say that this book is strictly educational, for the purpose of money? Is that like,
No, it's not. It's more so educational from a history standpoint, but I think it's more so just thought provoking, of just being able to like I always get a kick out of seeing something where it's like it should be obvious. It's not obvious though to people, or it just goes against people's natural human behavior. And so seeing examples and seeing all these like kind of things spotlighted throughout history of like here's the crazy thing that happened, and then here's the way that people reacted to it, and then here's kind of like what happened long term.
yeah.
I don't know. I guess I'm just a sucker for kind of like
No, it's interesting.
I, I'm a sucker for the storytelling of it all. And I think the other thing I'd say is he actually mentions, he like references Tim Urban in the book. And there was a lot of crossover between that book and the other book that I'm like in the middle of. It's a 700-page book. Okay.
Right.
I don't even have the physical book. I think it
Yeah,
might only be available on like Kindle. I have it on Kindle.
yeah.
But so it's the other book I'm reading is called What's Our Problem? A self-help book for societies by Tim Urban. Bless you.
Thank you.
Tim Urban has been talked about on this pod before. I've talked about his articles that he's written
Yeah,
for Wait But Why. I think I might have talked about a clip of his, a TED talk that he gave. He's just a brilliant guy. He's the guy that writes and draws the little illustrations, like the really funny illustrations that go along with like his articles.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
And so at one point, his blog kind of like stopped, and it turned out he was writing a book. And so it took him 6 years to write this book. And I finally got around to reading it, and it's incredible because it's so relevant to what's going on right now. I think he wrote it at a point in which he felt like the Republican and the Democratic Party had become like completely out of control.
Yeah,
And so really what he was doing is like he wanted to break down just like how politics works, like the history behind like how it's gotten to this point, and then literally like to the most granular details, like how you have like high level kind of like politics and thinkers, and then you have the low rung, high rung, and the low rung
Yeah.
in between, and then how media has affected politics,
Yeah.
how social media has affected it, and then what it's done to people in society. And it's fascinating. It's another one of those things where you read it and you're like, this is incredible, but it also makes you realize, like, and I think what it's been really great for me, it's validated my feelings of like, I don't want to participate in this fucking like circus act.
Yeah.
It's crazy. It's so true, and it's so true to what's going on right now, especially with all the conflicts and all the politics involved with it.
The Tim Urban book, though, I'm assuming is just contextualized to the US.
Yes, it is contextualized to the US. I think he does talk about it though, like from a global perspective. And I was going to mention that to you because it doesn't really matter that it's specific right now to the US. Meanwhile, I'm only 200 something pages in.
Yeah.
So like I don't even know where the book is going, but bro, you have to read this fucking book. It is like
Yeah,
it's
that is
brilliant.
fascinating.
It- It's fascinating, and then it just makes you like, it gives you that 30,000 foot view of like, I can't believe I let myself get caught up in this thing
Yeah.
and like fall into the tribalism of just like, because I think it, again, it speaks to human behavior in the way that like, oh, I'm on this one side, so I'm going to demonize the other side, right? Or like, I'm on this one side, so whenever I hear something that's counter to what I believe in, I'm not even going to listen to it. I'm only going to listen to the confirmation bias or the
Yeah.
echo chamber of my own side, and then I'm going to use that to kind of like reaffirm my beliefs.
I I think that point, though, that you're making is interesting because all of us who are able to kind of look at it from an outside view and keep an open mind, at least can hear discussion points and conversations that potentially don't align with what you believe in. But I do find, and COVID didn't help this, but I find that there are some people who feel so strongly about certain things that they make it their personality, that when you make a point that challenges what they believe in, they don't just feel like, "Hey, no, I don't believe," they feel personally attacked.
Yeah,
And
it's like
people,
you're attacking their personal identity.
yeah,
100%.
yeah, they make it their it's crazy, that notion of like, yeah, someone feels so strongly about something, they make it and ingrain it in their personality, and then if you contradict anything that they believe in, you're attacking them personally, even though that's not what you're trying to do, and that's not what you're doing at all, but that individual just feels so strongly about whatever fucking.
And it has a lot of like similarities to the way that people are in terms of like their fandom in sports, right? Like, and like
Yeah,
when you see somebody who's like getting into a fight at like you know, in the stands of like a football game, you're like, yeah, that's like the low rung fandom where it's like you could love this team so much, but like you're gonna treat an opposing fan as an enemy, and it literally plays out the same way in politics, especially when you're talking about like, and he kind of like, you know, has these different classifications for it. Like he calls it the primitive mind, you know,
yeah,
like the primitive mind just wants to find comfort in just the fact that people agree with them. They agree with like their personal beliefs. And then it really is kind of used in a way that's similar to like the way that you treat like, you know, your favorite sports team. So
yeah,
it's amazing. There's all these things that he does with illustrations to really kind of like illustrate his points, and he tries to really be like this like neutral thing, but it's so fascinating to see it broken down. And I'll give you one more example from it where it's like he'll say like, okay, if you are a Republican or you're a Democrat, like you stand by like these kind of basic issue, you know, these kind of points, these agenda points. So he did this thing where he's like, okay,
yeah,
here's like dogs versus raccoons,
yeah, yeah,
and he did all of these like these like headline articles, and it's like dog like raccoons are actually kind of cute, and it's like dog like there's like problems with like dogs like shitting on the sidewalks, and then he took all of these different headlines and then he turned them into like political headlines. So it's like raccoons, so it's like pro raccoon, and it's like dog like our dogs like really man's best friend, they're shitting all over the sidewalks.
yeah,
And
yeah,
then it's like, and then it's like raccoon found in the dumpster, and it's like pro dog, it's like raccoon found in the dumpster, as always.
Hey, I
It's like
got
the
you.
narrative of fucking media and Fox and MSNBC,
Yeah,
how they manipulate these headlines, and it's so true what they do, and all it makes you do is come away thinking the same thing that we've been talking about, is like,
yeah,
you can't trust media. Politics is in America is broken,
yeah.
and I don't know, it's just I love it. I'm really enjoying this book.
No, I definitely want to read that. And while we're on this conversation, I think it makes sense to transition to the next put on, which is a podcast. And I'll start us off, but I know, you hit me to listen to this one. So I know we both have listened to it, and that's Tim Kennedy on Joe Rogan. Tim is a retired fighter who then turned war vet, no? And was
Yeah, he's like some like elite type of
yeah,
Marine soldier. I don't know.
yeah,
Like,
something crazy where he's, on the front lines. He's been on the front lines in Afghanistan, and obviously, with what's going on right now with Israel and Hamas. And so, yeah, I mean, we talked about it briefly before, but like the three main takeaways for me were, and what he sort of talked about, so anyone who's interested in kind of these topics and getting, a different perspective can listen to that pod. But talks about the obviously Israel Hamas war and what he's seen being there in person, and all the conflict and different things there. I can let you touch on that. And then the US southern border crisis. The one thing that I thought was interesting that like actually stood out to me with what he was saying was like, when people are coming across the border, they then get a court date, which is like a year and a half later, and are able to stay, like, don't get deported, don't have to leave, are able to stay until that court date. And everyone knows that. So on the southern side, everyone's just coming in and knowing that, like, again, how come the US system, yeah, it just shows flaws in the system. I just thought that that piece of information was interesting around the fact that, like, you come in illegally. You can be there until your court date, which is like a year and a half out. So you can live in the
they're
US.
all going to like San Diego and just like
Yeah,
kicking it in like La Jolla.
exactly, exactly. So that was one of the things. And then yeah, he talks about the schools and grooming concerns in terms of the education system, and how fast we are now to talk about sexual identity and all these different things, like at a young age. And then the final thing being like Russia and China's influence um, in the macro right now. And obviously he's American, Joe's American, so it's kind of from that viewpoint. But yeah, those were like the three biggest takeaways from me. And obviously we can dive into any of those, but I don't know how you felt about, or if you took away anything else, how you felt, if there's anything that stood out to you.
I took away a lot. I mean, the guy, had been through three or four of the most just like traumatic types of conflicts over the last couple of years, right? So, like you said, he was in Afghanistan when they started pulling out everybody, um, and then he ended up at the border, which I didn't realize like how just uh, how bad it is. It's like just hearing the firsthand experience of what's going on and the people that are being able to cross through the border and how little control um like we have over who's coming across and
Yeah,
how fucked up the whole system is. And it sounds like a fucking major disaster, major crisis, and probably one of the big Biden failings. um and then obviously him talking about he went to Ukraine and then and then he's in Israel. And so like, look, I think I had a couple of thoughts about it. One is like, the guy's an American hero. Like, it's crazy. And he seems like the type of guy that, if if he was talked about, or if anybody kind of like tried to bring up like sound bites from this podcast, like there's definitely like a liberal side that would take this and spin it in a whole different way, right? And like kind of make it out to be like another Joe Rogan thing, like, oh, this guy is like super right wing, like, like kind of the way that you take like a patriot and kind of
yeah,
make it like you're a MAGA kind of like Republican type of guy, right?
yeah. Even though that was not my takeaway. I did not
Yeah.
get that it was super right wing. Like,
Well, the other part of it that you touched on that I think is really fucking interesting is the education system stuff. And
yeah,
you know, it seems like I think there was a point in time where like the thought of like homeschooling or like the thought of like, not sending your kid to college would be just thought like, well, you're kind of doing it ass backwards. But now what you're seeing, like the way that all the things that are happening at universities right now, like I told my wife the other day, like for how crazy it is that some of these like prestigious colleges, Stanford, Columbia, Harvard, of like, I don't know. Obviously, there's been all types of protests, and I don't want to get so into the politics of it all, but it just seems like they're so woke and they're so. It would be hard for me to send one of my kids to one of these schools at this point, and especially knowing how much it costs, but just also how broken the educational system is and what they're actually teaching. It's fucking scary. And
we
I think it is like if I saw into the future what it's going to be like, I can anticipate that there is a big change coming as it relates to the U.S. education system.
we could do we. I feel like we could do a whole episode on the education system alone. I have a lot of thoughts, and I don't necessarily want to get into them right now. Um,
Yeah,
so
it's broken though.
yeah, let's definitely. I think we should table this and do an episode just on the education system alone. Yeah, I think to your point. I mean, man, I'm 22. Think about kids in the next 5, 10 years, whatever that is, and like, yeah, do I want with the way that things are going right now? Do I want my kids to, in Canada, like they don't refer to kids anymore as like him or her, she, like it's everyone's they. The kids are going to be coming home with a bunch of questions like, "Hey, dad, why did Miss so and so call me it today?" Like, man, it's insane. Like that young of an age, we don't need to be pushing agendas in my opinion. It's
Listen, I think it's exaggerated to some extent. It depends. Like there's definitely some school systems where that's happening. I think there's others where it's not as pronounced,
yeah,
but like
yeah, yeah.
the last thing I'll say about Tim Kennedy, and then I'll tell you about the podcast that I want to tell you about, is just, like it's one thing for a lot of people have a lot of very strong convictions and opinions on things. But I think it's always very important to hear from somebody that's on the front lines
I
of
agree.
certain places, right? Like you want to talk about immigration, listen to somebody that was there and literally saw what happened from firsthand experience. You want to talk about Israel and Palestine? This guy, again, was there on the front lines and like, yeah, it's just one person's opinion. You got to take that with a grain of salt. But I mean, who better to kind of speak on something than somebody that, especially like a guy like Tim Kennedy, who's unbiased, right? He's not Jewish. Like he's not Palestinian. He's just there and like he's trying to help and he's trying to preserve peace. Um, and that's where I thought it was just really insightful and a very great listen to listen to that episode with Joe.
Yeah, I definitely think, yeah, again, if you're interested in those different kind of topics that we talked about, give that one a listen. What was the other one that you had?
So I don't want this to be like the Joe Rogan only podcast like thing, but I had to listen to him talk to David Gorsuch because, as you know, I am the resident
Yeah,
alien guy,
you are.
and Gorsuch is the guy that testified
Yes.
in front of Congress. He's the whistleblower, and so I had to fucking listen to it. And like look, you listen to this podcast and there's no way that you come away from it without thinking that there are aliens and they're walking amongst us. They've been here forever.
Okay.
Like it's crazy, and this guy is so, he's a nerd, right?
Wait,
He's
what's his background? Like, what's his?
like Air Force,
Okay.
like
Okay.
high
Yeah, yeah,
high rank, and then he worked for like the UAP, intelligence kind of agency, whatever that you want to
yeah,
call
yeah,
that, like studying kind of UFOs, or now what they call UAPs,
yeah, yeah.
talking to all of the people that deal with all of these classified, instances. And he's really spoken to all of the people that are like the ones that are the gatekeepers, right? And he said one thing that I keep thinking about, and it kind of reminds me of like what we've talked about in the past, of just like he kind of intimated at the fact that whatever it is that we're talking about, like aliens, right? That basically that the way that they view us in his mind is like we are the monkey with the nuclear weapons, like that
Yeah. Oh,
that they're either they don't really care about us. They're either like kind of ambivalent about us, or they just think we're dangerous and they're worried about us,
that we're gonna do stupid things because we
Yeah.
yeah, yeah,
And when you hear it like that, because that's something I've always kind of like theorized, is that they just look at us like we're the fucking animals, of course, because they're the most technologically advanced, or at least more advanced in that they could get to us, or like travel through dimensions. Who knows what their technology is?
yeah,
But that um it's just, to me, what's so interesting is that like when you try and think about it beyond just the encounters, just beyond the whole kind of story around like us finding some of their technology and trying to reverse engineer it and all those things, it's like the second step, the third step of like, but why would they be coming here? And like what, and like what's the, who are they, what's the purpose, all those things. And I always love the idea of one, thinking that, the premise of us being genetically engineered, which would make so much sense. Like, why are we so different than all the other animals? Like,
yeah,
could
yeah,
be something that has happened. I love the idea of just that they've been here for thousands of years and we've been seeing things forever. And like, there's basically, he's intimating at the fact that, there's the documented cases and then there's the things that are like confidential. So that, and then the third thing, like, like I said, just the idea of we're the ones that are like the crazy aliens that are dangerous, that
yeah, yeah,
can be harmful to the rest of the universe. They're the ones that are just coming over here and just kind of like checking us out and
yeah,
trying to
yeah,
make sure that we don't do
like
anything.
babysitting us. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
I can't yeah, right now, I can't wrap my head around any of the 3, but that's an interesting conversation. Yeah, I'll give that one a listen. Um,
You got to check it out. And I think the real thing that is like, it's tough because he speaks like he's like, some high ranking official in one of our intelligence communities. And he's so careful about what he can disclose too, right? He's like,
yeah,
we'll ask him a question and he'll be like, just whatever you think, like it's probably close to that. Or he'll say, like, I can't speak on that. And it's just
that's
so shrouded in mystery that it's just fascinating.
yeah.
I'm endlessly fascinated by anything alien related.
Oh, yeah, yeah, yeah. I'll give that a listen. I'll let you know what I think.
Okay. Yeah.
But cool. Yeah, let's jump into social quickly, and then we can kind of wrap from there. I know that you had
Sure.
a hard, somewhat of a hard
Hard stop that we've just zoomed right over.
zoom by. Here, we'll keep it quick.
Yeah.
I just got
Okay.
I just got 2 things for social. One of them is I don't know if you've seen these guys, the Pointer Brothers. Um, TikTok, pretty heavy TikTok. But what they do, it's just like funny skits, and I think that they're creative, and they always seem to have a funny skit every day that I see. But it's like they'll do things where right now the trend is like the side eye. So they'll be like, Friday at work will be the setting. They'll be like, we totally shouldn't, skip all the afternoon meetings and just go fucking rip beers. And then it'll be like, and he'll give him the side eye. And they do it in the airport. They do it in all sorts of different places. And so, yeah, check those guys out.
I just looked them up, by the way. I recognize them. They're very funny.
Yeah, they're
They're
funny. Yeah,
funny stuff.
it's good content.
They're like they're real bros.
Yeah, they are. Yeah, they're brothers. So those guys, they give me a little bit of like the same energy vibe as like the breadbasket guys, but completely different realm of like content. The breadbasket,
When I said they're real bros, I didn't mean like they're actual brothers. I meant
I
like
think
they're
they are actual brothers though.
I know, but I meant more so like bros,
I
like
got you,
bro.
bros. And the other one, I love the real estate content. I've never really fucked with architecture and stuff like that, but some of like the drone shots and like the tours of the houses and stuff. I know whatever that guy, what Caleb did like the house tours and
Caleb Simpson.
Caleb Simpson does the house tours and stuff. But there's one guy, Tyler Hassman. He's in Calgary, and so like it's actually houses by me that I can see. But just like the way he does them up, I like it. I think he's good. He's engaging, and it goes back to like the whole. I just wanted to touch on like, I feel like for real estate agents, the whole content thing was blown up with that one guy, Ryan, whatever his name is, the New York fucking real estate mogul who sells the
Ryan Serhant.
Ryan Serhant. Thank you. So yeah, I just think like see how it impacts the fucking whole industry. But the real estate content is interesting. It's there. People
Mhm.
buying houses through seeing things on TikTok, etc. So yeah, those are the two different socials. What do you got?
It's funny, just real quick on the real estate. Like sometimes they'll be like, check out this house. And it's like this incredible house. And I'm like, wow, look at this house. And then it's like $200,000. I'm like, what the
Yeah,
fuck? And it's like, it's in San Antonio. And it's like, oh, okay, right, exactly. I could go live in
yeah,
a $200,000 mansion in
yeah, yeah,
fucking Bumblefuck,
yeah, yeah.
Texas. But I get hooked on the real estate content too on social. But so my two quick ones are, have you ever heard of this guy named Devon Rodriguez?
No.
He's an artist. You might know if once I describe it, but he's the guy that like will be on a train
Okay.
sitting across from somebody that looks really interesting, and then he'll literally like start drawing like a picture of them, and it's so
Well,
realistic
I
the
think
picture.
yeah, I've seen him a couple
And
times.
I'm talking about. And then at the end, he'll like sign it, and then he'll give it to them.
Yeah, 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 yeah,
They're always like blown away. I get such a kick out of watching those videos. Sometimes I'm like, is it real? Is it staged?
yeah.
Because he has to be able to like sit there long enough to do it. And
I'm saying
sometimes,
about them leaving, like,
yeah. So that part, I'm like, I'm not 100% sure on, but um, just really great content. And then the second one, so this one is kind of like a new one in the sense that it's a Twitter social handle that I'm going to give you.
okay,
Um, Usually I do Instagram and TikTok, but there's this one handle that that I just love called Amazing Nature at
yeah,
Amazing Nature.
okay,
The name like outside the handle is Nature is Amazing, but the actual handle
that is
Amazing Nature, and it's just maybe it's the thing that kind of got me started on panda content because they would always show all these like incredible panda videos,
yeah,
but then they'll do like here's the edge of a rainstorm and they'll show like a rainstorm go by and you could see like where it's like the actual edge of it is and it's incredible. There was one I sent you or maybe I put it on our social handle the other day, but it was like a conch's eyes,
oh, yeah, 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 yeah,
and I was like, this cannot be real. It like
yeah,
zoomed all the way into the conch, and the conch's eyes are like cartoon eyes. And I'm
yeah,
like,
yeah,
is it fucking real? And then I looked up conch's eyes.
and it is,
Conches have cartoon eyes.
yeah,
They have like Gary from fucking SpongeBob SquarePants
yeah,
eyes.
yeah, yeah, crazy. I know, I'll have to yeah, I haven't seen that content on Twitter, but
Uh-huh.
yeah, I'll have to check it out.
So many amazing animal videos on Amazing Nature Twitter. So that's the other one that I'd recommend. And I've watched a million videos. I can't even remember them at this point. I think at one point I said I was going to quit social
Yeah, I was
media.
gonna ask you.
I I did. I quit for like 24 hours, maybe 48 hours, and then I got right
That
back on there.
I respect it. Man, it is so
No,
many
I mean you shouldn't respect it. I'm addicted to it. It's bad, but
hey, it's part of your job too, like, I get it. Um,
no, but I will say this. I really, really I've been thinking about it so much lately. Like I really have been making a concerted effort to like get myself off of it when I'm like mindlessly scrolling or just try and I think that's the reason I'm reading two books is because I'm just like enough. Like let me just get off and do some how can I kind of put my brain somewhere else to kind of make up for what I'm
consuming social. Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, just quick as well. I think I actively am paying attention to my psychology when I'm like watching things and I scroll for 2 hours and I'm like, shit, like I was in bed scrolling for 2 hours through TikTok, then back to Twitter, then back to Instagram. I like kind of pay attention to the flow that I'm going, and I'm like, okay, I consume video and just like mindlessly scroll video for 30 minutes. Then I'm like, fuck it, let me get some Twitter, let me get a little finance stuff, let me get some AI stuff, and I'm like noticing what I like and what I can, and I'm like, shit, like, okay, if this is what I like, how can that make me a better content creator? But also, yeah, can I limit my time spent on all these different things? So, social, man, it'll always be there, always interesting.
Such an interesting conundrum that
It is.
between that, those two kind of competing factors.
It is. But let's wrap it all up. Episode 14 with a life takeaway. Mine's super brief, so I'll just go. Um,
Do it.
and it's around the fact that I've done this a lot recently, but explore curiosity and you'll find fulfillment in life across all sorts of different facets that you never thought you would. So, yeah, my takeaway is be curious, tap into that whenever you have a question, whenever you think of something, dive deeper, and the outcome, whatever it may be, will be beneficial in multiple different ways. So that's my takeaway. Um, what's yours?
So I was gonna do something on gratitude, which is kind of lame now that I think about it. I mean, we're just coming out of Thanksgiving, blah blah blah. This is what I want to talk about just very briefly is I'm the coach of my kids' flag football teams,
Yep.
right?
Yep.
I have one that's 5 and one that's 8. My 8-year-old was in a really intense playoff game that we lost in quadruple overtime.
Holy
It
shit.
was like heart-wrenching.
Yeah.
And after the game, like it affected me so much, like for days, for like a couple days. Like I'm like
Yeah.
in the shower, just like second guessing myself on plays that I called,
Yeah.
just like, and it was so emotional and so intense. The coaches on my sideline, the coach of the other team, like did something, and we got into a fight with them, and
Shit.
it's really crazy. I think whenever I see those like stories about youth sports and like
Yeah.
parents getting into fights and all those things, it's always like, wow, parents are crazy. But then when you're in the moment and it's so intense and both sides like are so competitive and they want to win,
He does.
it actually is not surprising that
No.
there's so many instances of like parents getting into it in these different
Yeah.
youth sports things. Um, but you know what? I think my main takeaway is just like, my kid kind of like was so upset when the game ended and all the kids are
Yeah.
crying. And then literally in 5 minutes, 10 minutes, it's like
It's nothing.
completely forgotten about. Yeah. And they just move on. And it's the parents that kind of like hang on to it and
Yeah.
eats away at them. And I think it just speaks maybe a little to something of like, you know, maybe you need to have kind of like a kid kind of way of
Letting go.
handling things sometimes, of letting go, yeah, of not dwelling on things, and that's something that kids are able to do so easily. They're able to just like move past things in a way and not dwell on things, and I think it's something that I struggle with so much.
Yeah.
It's like I'm so in my own head, and so I think my takeaway is just like being cognizant of that, and not things, these things that are like not important, just kind of having some perspective about it, like I think maybe that's really what it goes back to, is like perspective, is just having that perspective and being able to not be such a fucking psychopath the way that
Yeah.
parents can be and the way that I can be.
I like that one. I like that one. Yeah, that's a good takeaway. I think to the kid point, kids being able to easily let go, whereas us adults fucking hold on to things. So, yeah,
Forever, right?
man.
You think about when you hang on to, like, everything that's happened in your past, right? And just, like, playing it back, and then those are the things that so many people do. They kinda stress about these things that have happened,
Yeah,
"Oh, how could I have done it differently?" And at a certain point, you kinda just gotta
yeah. Say la vie.
wipe your hands clean and say la vie, yep.
Cool. Let's wrap there. Good episode. Episode 14. Appreciate you. Enjoy the rest of your weekend, D. We'll talk soon. Peace.
Peace. Thanks, Cal.
Thank you for tuning into the Put On Podcast. If you enjoyed this episode, make sure to subscribe and don't forget to follow us on social at the Put On Pod.